The rain had been falling for hours when the call came in. At 2:47 a.m., a woman named Dana Mulray stumbled into the Elkhart County Sheriff's Office, barefoot and soaked to the bone. Her hands trembled as she gripped the counter. "They're gone," she whispered, "all 7 of them, and I saw it happen." By sunrise, FBI Special Agent Blake Wilder was already on the road from Indianapolis, her black SUV slicing through sheets of rain. The coordinates Dana gave led to a farmhouse on the outskirts of Elkhart, Indiana, miles from any main road, surrounded by cornfields and mist. When Blake arrived, the front door hung open. The house smelled of wet wood and something metallic blood. A dining table was set for 7, plates still warm from last night's dinner, but every chair was empty. A clock on the wall had stopped at 10:06 p.m. The local sheriff filled her in. The Mulrays were hosting a reunion. Dana says she saw 7 figures at the table, and then when lightning flashed, they were just gone. Blake frowned. "Gone, as in kidnapped?" "No," the sheriff replied, shifting uneasily. "She says they disappeared, just gone." Blake didn't buy it. She'd worked too many cases to believe in vanishing acts. But when she walked through the kitchen, she saw something that made her stop cold. 7 muddy footprints leading toward the back door. Not from people leaving, but from people entering. Outside, the rain turned to mist. Blake followed the prints into the cornfield. After about 30 yards, they stopped abruptly, mid-stride. No drag marks, no vehicle tracks, nothing but trampled mud. It was as if 7 people had walked into thin air. Inside the barn, she found Dana sitting on an overturned bucket, staring at a wall of family photographs. "They were right here," Dana murmured. "My husband, my sisters, my nieces. I was pouring wine, and then—" She broke off, eyes glassy. The lights flickered. I turned around, and they were gone. But before they disappeared, they all looked at me like they knew something. Blake crouched beside her. "What did they say?" "Nothing," Dana whispered. "They didn't speak, but I saw it. Behind them. A shadow in the doorway." By mid-morning, forensics swept the scene. No sign of forced entry. No prints other than the family's. Every phone, every car, every personal belonging, still there. Blake checked the clock again. 10:06 p.m. Exactly the time the power had gone out across the entire county. Coincidence or something else? That night, she returned to her hotel and pulled up old police records. Her instincts told her the case wasn't isolated. And she was right. Over the past decade, there had been 6 similar disappearances across 3 states, always involving multiple people, always in rural homes, always at night. Each case ended the same way. No bodies, no leads, no explanations. Then she noticed something that made her skin crawl. Each report had a note buried deep in the file. Different handwriting, same phrase. "She saw them too late." Blake leaned back, staring at the words. She saw them. The next morning, she met with Dana again at the hospital. The woman was pale, trembling, eyes darting toward every corner of the room. "You don't understand," she said. "They weren't strangers. I know who they were. I've seen them before years ago." Blake's pulse quickened. "Who?" Dana hesitated, then whispered, "The 7 people who disappeared tonight. They're the same 7 I saw buried when I was a child." For a long moment, neither spoke. Blake's phone buzzed. It was her partner, Agent Rivera. "Blake, you need to come back to the farmhouse. Now. We found something in the basement." She raced through the rain, sirens wailing in the distance. The house loomed ahead, its windows glowing faint blue and the stormlight. Rivera met her at the door, face pale. "You're not going to believe this." Blake followed him down the stairs. The smell hit first damp earth, rot, old wood, then the flashlight beam, swept across the concrete floor, landing on 7 shapes laid side by side. They weren't human remains, not exactly. Each figure was a life-size mannequin, dressed in the exact same clothes as the missing family members. Every face was painted with precise, eerie detail, every expression identical, eyes wide open, staring at the door. Blake stepped closer, her breath catching. Each mannequin had a tag tied to its wrist. 7 tags, 7 names, and beneath each name, a date. All of them read the same thing. The mannequins were too real. Blake's flashlight trembled slightly as she scanned the faces. Every wrinkle, every freckle, every terrified stare was carved with disturbing accuracy. Dana Mulray's family, perfectly replicated, lying in silence. Rivera swallowed hard. "These were made before they disappeared," he said quietly. "The paint on the hands is dry, at least a week old." Blake's mind raced. So, whoever did this planned it, every detail. She crouched down, noticing something odd. The paint under one mannequin's fingernails was chipped, revealing real skin tone beneath. Blake froze. Slowly she reached out and pressed her gloved thumb against the surface. It was warm. "Rivera," she whispered, "call forensics. Now." When the team arrived, the basement turned into a flurry of cameras and gloves. Blake watched as a technician scraped a layer of paint from one mannequin's arm, revealing bruised human flesh underneath. The figures weren't mannequins. They were the missing family. Each body had been coated in wax and pigment, transformed into lifelike statues. Every one of them frozen in the same expression, wide eyes, as if they'd seen something just before death. Dana Mulray collapsed when she saw them. Her screams echoed up the stairwell, cutting through the storm outside. Blake held her back as paramedics rushed in. "They weren't supposed to die," Dana sobbed. "He said he'd just take their faces, not their lives." Blake's eyes snapped to her. "He? Who are you talking about, Dana?" But the woman just shook her head, repeating, "I tried to stop him. I tried." Hours later, Blake stood in the rain outside the house, watching the coroner's vans roll away. The case had taken a sharp, dark turn. What began as a disappearance was now a ritualized killing, staged, deliberate, and deeply personal. She drove back to her motel, unable to shake the image of the painted corpses. Who could do something like that? And why mark the date of their deaths in advance? At 3:12 a.m., her phone buzzed, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. A man's voice, low and calm. "You shouldn't have gone down there, Agent Wilder." Blake's heart froze. "Who is this?" Silence. Then, "You're looking for me, but you're already too late. She saw us once. Now you've seen too." The line went dead. The line went dead. Blake immediately traced the call. It pinged from just outside town, near the old freight yard that had been abandoned for years. By dawn, she and Rivera were on site. The place was a maze of rusted train cars and storage sheds. On the ground, fresh footprints led toward a small maintenance building. Inside, walls were lined with photographs. 7 families, 7 disappearances, 7 sets of victims, all waxed, all dated. At the center of the room stood a metal table, and on it an 8th mannequin. Only this one wasn't finished. Half painted, still wet. The face was unmistakable. It was Dana Mulray. Before Blake could react, she heard a faint noise behind her, a floorboard creaking. She turned just as a figure in a dark hood slipped through the back door, vanishing into the rain. Blake sprinted after him, shouting for Rivera, but by the time they reached the alley, he was gone. All that remained was a note pinned to the fence. Written in thick black ink were 4 words that made her blood run cold. "She saw us all." By the following evening, Dana Mulray was under protective custody at St. Luke's Hospital. Blake watched her from the hallway through a glass partition, pale, eyes vacant, lips moving as if in silent conversation. "She's repeating something," Rivera said quietly, "over and over again." "What is it?" Rivera checked his notepad. "She keeps saying 7 faces, 1 voice." Blake frowned. 7 faces, 1 voice? She turned back to the caseboard. Photos, notes, timelines, everything pointed to one pattern. Every disappearance involved 7 people, always connected to Dana's childhood town. There was one name that kept surfacing, Dr. Marcus Vale, a local psychiatrist who'd once treated Dana after a traumatic event when she was 10 years old. His clinic had burned down 15 years ago, taking 7 patients. Why? Seconds later, an explosion ripped through the cornfield behind them. The blast threw both agents to the ground. Flames roared up, lighting the sky. And through the fire, Blake saw him. A man in a mask, standing at the edge of the field, motionless. She raised her gun, but he was gone, again, swallowed by smoke and rain. By morning, Dana Mulray was dead. Hospital security found her lifeless in her room, no sign of forced entry. On her bedsheet, written in ash, were the words, "The last one sees." Blake didn't sleep for 2 days. She buried herself in records, evidence, and psych profiles until a pattern emerged. Each of the 7 victims in every case had been linked to Dr. Vale's experimental therapy sessions before the fire. He hadn't died. He'd gone underground, obsessed with recreating his 7 witnesses, patients he believed could see the truth behind death itself. The faces Dana described weren't visions. They were his victims, each one molded, painted, and preserved as part of his masterpiece. That night, Blake returned to the old clinic one last time. In the basement, under burned beams and moldy walls, she found 7 glass cases, empty but labeled with names. The last plaque read, Blake Wilder. A faint creak echoed behind her. She turned, flashlight trembling. A man's shadow flickered at the end of the hall. "Agent Wilder," the voice whispered. "I've saved the best face for last." Blake fired twice. The silhouette vanished. Silence, then footsteps receding into the dark. When backup arrived, there was no sign of Vale, only a recorder left on the floor, still running. On it, his voice. "They never die, Agent Wilder. They only see. And now, so do you." The recording ended with a single, faint sound, a camera shutter clicking. Blake looked around, realizing the flash hadn't come from the recorder. It came from behind her. She turned, just in time to see the red light of a camera fade into the dark, pointing directly at her face. And taped to the lens was a small wax-covered note, 8 sols.